Sorry about that. I got muted for a minute. Okay, so if I could go back and make note of who's online here for roll call and then a motion to approve the agenda, please.
Online, you have Beth Mel, Nicole, Deb Pelch, and yourself. In the room, you have Anita, Angela, Joe, Al, Jeannie, Brent, Alex, Andrew, Chad, and Dale.
Thank you.
And Jody Totten just joined as well.
Great. If we could have a motion to approve the agenda, please.
That we approve the agenda.
Okay. Is there anybody from the public that'd like to make a statement or participate? Hearing or seeing none. We have the June 23rd Finance and Audit Committee minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
That we approve minutes.
Okay, we'll consider those approved. And so we're to the June 26th financial statement presentation. Angela, it's all yours.
Thank you, sir. So we are going to jump straight into the pro forma statement. And the reason is that is going to give us a better operational picture than what the other financials would provide, given that they have a lot of year-end adjustments going on in it.
Okay.
We're going to get that expanded. Bear with us just a moment. Okay, so what we have done here is we took on the very left-hand column, the actuals, and then stripped out the year-end adjustments next to it. And those are things that are, PERS OPEB adjustment, amortizations, gas fee required year-end adjustments, things that aren't specifically operational or have to do with how we were functioning as an organization. So we have pulled those out and then provided a more normalized June. So what would June have looked like without all those year-end deductions? And when I say non-operational, I mean things like amortization, depreciation, interest expense, things where the decisions were made years ago and we're just booking them for usage during the year, but there was no cash associated with it. It wasn't an operational item. So if we normalize that, it can do a much different picture. The next thing we called avoidable adjustments. So these are going to be our reimbursement pressures. These are things like rural demonstration funds not being renewed yet. And we're actively working on different ways to address that. In addition to that one, we were able to identify that there were a couple of DRG issues. And what we mean by that is the reimbursement for Medicare is not what it should be. And it's in two specific areas. One is we're not getting reimbursed for compensated care. The second one is we are not getting our reimbursement for a low volume adjustment, which we should be. So we are sending a letter to Meridian to get that fixed. And we're also putting in calls to them to identify why that fell off and broke out of the system. So those two items together, oral health demonstration funding was 4.2 annualized. What we are calculating the DRG adjustments with Medicare is about 3 million. So when we normalize those for the month, this is not annualized, but this is the monthly look, then you get your adjusted June. So that's how we have built this out.
Is that DRG issue, is that been an issue for the whole year that you've just identified, or is that just for the most recent month?
We are seeing that it looks like it fell off in January and because of the lag to collect. Now
Now you're noticing.
So once we've identified it, we've gone back and asked for that correction.
And does that apply to Medicaid DRGs also, or just to Medicare?
It's Medicare. So, speaking to this pro forma, then on the reported income statement, clearly June was a financially challenging month. And the headline isn't telling that underlying operational story, which is why we have segmented it out this way.
Yeah, but Angela, on the, I understand, what you're doing here mechanically, but the year-end adjustments, especially that for the rural demonstration that you've just recognized in June, that is, that's a real cash flow issue. I mean, this isn't just it's not a depreciation item. It's not something that doesn't have an impact on us. I mean, this is cash that we were anticipating that has not come in the door, and more importantly, also is not going to be coming in the door in FY27 unless we have, Congress decides to approve it, right? So we really have that $7 million as a cash impact. We're just recognizing that in June. Is that fair?
Correct, but that's why we split it into two separate columns. So we have the year-end adjustment one that is the non-operational that gives us, okay, what is our normalized June if we didn't have those year-end adjustments?
Yeah.
What does that look like for us operationally? And operationally, we would have had earnings before interest, depreciation, and amortization of about 451,000. That's an operational. The avoidable adjustments or the reimbursement pressures, yes, that is real cash. And then if we did have that money, that is the last column. That is when we would get to earnings before interest, depreciation, and amortization of about 1.08 million. But yeah, we don't have that, and we don't have an answer at this time, so we can't look at it. And that's why they're segmented that way.
So just to make sure I understand what you're saying, the last column, the adjusted June, if in fact you had been able to not have the avoidable adjustments,
Right.
if you had avoided them,
Right.
the net gain for the month, income for the month would have been almost 300,000.
Yes.
And with those, it was just the normal month stuff. It was at minus 500,000.
Right. At the net income
Yeah,
level.
yeah, I understand what you're trying to show.
So if we look at June on its own, it was actually a strong volume month. There was 28.5 million in gross patient revenue. This view of the normalized, the specific things that we're pulling out are the year-end accounting entries, the gas fee entries, inventory adjustment, the appreciation and amortization, any extraordinary settlements, PERS and OPEB adjustments, which actually PERS and OPEB actually happened to be a lift for this year, about 3 million, but we went ahead and pulled that aside. So that gets us to that underlying operating, and net income loss would be 538. If you exclude depreciation, amortization, and all things from prior years, you get to 251. Then that remaining things that could be avoided was the rural health demo, the DRG, and we have identified and issued an RCM for prior auth. We talked about that a little bit, and other areas. And there is approximately annualized 3 million of avoidable write-offs and prior auth issues. So that goes to our identifying revenue cycle and then addressing all opportunities to streamline and optimize revenue cycle. So if we're looking at that, that's when we get over to the 295,000, to obtaining all those opportunities as well as recapturing some reimbursements that we're not seeing. So what we're trying to convey here is we don't have a demand problem. We're still operating strong. But we are seeing a reimbursement and revenue conversion to cash. And that's where our challenges are. Any questions on that?
Yeah, before we go to the committee, for questions on this, I'd like a little bit more detail, please, around the year-end adjustments for 10, 11, and 15. So for the inpatient contractual allowance adjustment that was booked in June, that 2.5 million is my understanding is that is strictly related to the rural demo. We don't have any of the lack of payment on the small hospital adjustments in that. Is that correct, Angela?
Fine.
I can comment on that now.
Okay.
Yeah, if you would, Joe, please.
The way the contractual allowance works is we have an 12 months AGUs. And so we have 6 months where we're not receiving that $250,000. So as you sit there and you apply that reimbursement percentage to the Medicare AR, is we have that less and less reimbursement every month because of this error. We have to allow more and more and more. So we're allowing heavy on Medicare because we're not getting the CRG payment. You understand what I'm saying? So as we're collecting, as that payment mechanism is broken, we have to allow for that, even though we know we can get it retroed or paid, hopefully through the cost report. So
Yeah. So, okay, so this is, so that row 10 though, then is blended, is what I'm hearing from you, is they're both.
It's a blended, yeah, it's two different issues. You have, part of it was, we don't have the rural community administration. The second part is when we flattened out our contractual, this broken piece in Medicare that dropped off is the other part of it.
Okay, so is the broken piece, so I guess what I'm trying to get to is, I'm trying to get from the $7 million, it's in Angela's report that you talked to, which is this kind of a normalized, if we're using a kind of a standardized contractual number, and the $2.5 million that I'm seeing in the adjustment column in row 10. I mean, how do I get from one to the other?
I don't know how to make the jump. It's kind of a blended rate. Andrew,
For the year-end adjustment column. Yeah. Yes, so the 2.5 million, all that was just an adjustment to get to the 47.7% annualized rate. So that would factor in all of the deduction issues that we have seen throughout the year. Just to get to a monthly rate for all of those adjustments, because these contractual allowances should have probably been booked earlier in the year. We are catching up for several months of poor collections at this point.
Okay, Andrew, so let's stay with this. So what I'm hearing from you is, because of, I want to paraphrase this correctly, so that what I think I'm hearing, and this is all inpatient, because all of rural demo and all of the DRG related stuff is all in the inpatient line. And so we are $7 million light because of the reimbursement problems, not reimbursement, because of rural demo, and because of the these payment problems that we're having with Medicare. But we had already recognized a good chunk of that, and so it's the difference, that the net amount is what the 2.5 million is. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, it is just, we recorded the allowance based on our aging buckets as of June 30th. So to get to this allowance, the calculated allowance, so we trued up to the allowance calculation at the end of the fiscal year, which was a 10.6, which resulted in 10.6 million in expense for the month of June. But to normalize that figure, we took the total annual amount for the full fiscal year and applied to just June operations to understand what June operations should have resulted in for an adjustment for the month.
Okay, so I guess what I'm hearing from you is that when you look at your outstanding receivables, you're adjusting those receivables to a realizable amount, and it's just you're pushing that difference through the P&L to that line. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. So then back to the amount for this, what you weren't getting paid that you should have been getting paid from Medicare. Is that number in your net receivable or not in your net receivable?
We are allowing for that in the net receivable.
So it's your net receivable is reduced by these amounts that you have not been paid yet?
That's correct.
And that dollar amount is how much?
I believe that out at about 3 million.
And
Well,
what's the likelihood that you're going to get paid that?
the likelihood that we're to get to 3 million
Yeah.
in DRG payment, I'd say we have two avenues to receive that payment. The first avenue, if they extend rural demo, they will settle to cost and we'll get paid for that money. That's one avenue. The other way is we have submitted a letter to Meridian asking them to retro it, and everything we've seen on their site says they will retro.
You're saying, so what I'm hearing from you is that you feel pretty strongly that you will recover that $3 million. Is that correct?
Yeah, one of two avenues, yes.
Okay. All right. Now, before we turn over committee, I want to look at 11 and I want to look at 15. So if we could start with Andrew again. Andrew, on the outpatient contractual allowance, what is that adjustment? Are those billing catch-ups? What's going, I mean, it's a separate issue from the inpatient and this DRG based and and the rural demo stuff. So why are we booking that big of adjustment to outpatient contractual allowance? And you could probably throw the bad debt into the discussion because I'm betting they're kind of the same thing, but maybe not.
Yes, these are all the same methodology as inpatient, where we trued up to an allowance calculation for our aging as of June 30th. With the June 30th calculation, we corrected some of our allowance figures in the model, which resulted in a more conservative allowance for all of the payers.
Okay, so these are net adjustments. So basically, so what again? So just like the inpatient for the outpatient receivables and the self-pay receivables that are non-insurance, which would flow through the bad debt line. These are all, hey, to paraphrase this, we were way off on our model, and we're adjusting to a corrected model. Is that fair?
Yes.
I think that's part of it. We also had a big catch up in physician billing.
That did play into it, yes. The physician billing, we had a significant amount of charges posted in June, which resulted in AR aging spiking.
Okay. All right. So how does this not have, I mean, it's great. I love the adjusted June number that you've got in there, and I've loved how you've moved some of that over to the adjusted June, but how does this not impact our FY27 plan, Joe? I mean, how do we know now? Okay, so we were way over on our model. Well, presumably when you built the model for 27, you had incorrect P&L side contractual allowances built into it as well, right?
Yeah, our allowance might be a little bit light, but I mean, so one of the things is you have Medicare affecting two different sides of this. So the decreased reimbursement also increases the allowance. So if we expect to get that 3 million back that we didn't get last year, we also have like $6 million, probably inpatient. It might be 5 million. With inpatient Medicare receivable that we have to allow a much higher rate on. That's probably 9% higher than it should be. And so as that gets corrected, that amount will flex back. For the inpatient contractual amount specifically. On the outpatient side, we might be over allowed. But some of these things will be adjusted as we start tackling like the prior auth issues and some of those other things.
And
Okay.
if I may, that rate that was in FY, or that is in FY 27 budget was based off what our actual collections were, and that was from an audited period. So it is achievable. We're just having these reimbursement and revenue conversion issues.
So one thing that I'm going to ask you guys to do though, Joe and Angela, for our next meeting is look afresh at our FY27 budget. And I want you to, in light of these, because if I remember correctly, for example, rural demonstration, you budgeted assuming you were going to get rural demonstration for 27, correct?
As we budget no demonstration.
No, we didn't budget demonstration.
I'm sorry?
I don't believe we did. I will double check, but I don't believe we budgeted demonstration because it was spongy at the time.
Okay, so in light of the just this adjustment, because it is, it's a little rattling. I mean, I got to be honest with you, these, especially the contractual adjustments that we're booking here are just, it's unusual to get to year end and say, oh, oops, we're off by this amount. I'm not making light of it or making fun of it. Don't get me wrong, but I want to have a new look at the 27 budget, and especially these four lines that we've got here from line 10 to line 15. I guess 5 lines. Charity care is not big, other deductions, but I think it's at this point it's reasonable to request you guys to go back through the FY27, look at the assumptions you did, and come back and kind of explain to us, here's what we have for the contractual adjustments in each one of these lines and why, and how those line up to our FY26 results that you've got in here on these normalized contractual amounts. Does that work for you, Joe?
That makes sense.
All right. I don't mean to be dominating in here. Jenny or Brent, do you guys have any questions?
No.
Jeannie, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Sorry,
You didn't-
I shook my head. No, thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So if we could go to the next page, Anita, and because I want to kind of focus on what this looks like for overall, scroll down to the year-to-date actual column, or the bottom of year-to-date actual. So we're sitting now at a loss of $8.7 million for 26. And that, it's important to remember too, that Andrew booked, included in these numbers, we didn't spend any time on the prior page, but there was a $3.2 million credit, a reduction in employee benefits recorded because of the state's year-end GASB 68 and 75 adjustments. And Andrew and I went through those together, and I believe they're booked correctly. And I also had a good conversation today with the staff at DRB to understand why that adjustment was as big as it was. And I don't think we need to take committee time on that right now, but I'll share that with Joe and Angela, that conversation. But so we're sitting at an $8.7 million loss. And I just heard from you guys that we have the potential for recovering $3 million of that related to these Medicare issues. So, let's say we do, and let's say that brings us to $5.7 million. What other potential upside is there still sitting in these numbers, upside or downside, in this year-end result that we have here? And of the big pieces of that, what are the likelihood of recovery? And I guess the one I'm thinking about are this lag in billing that we've got going on. So if Joe or Angela, you guys could speak to that, please.
I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity in revenue cycle. I have referenced that there's a 3.3 million we identified in prior authorization write-offs that we can fix with centralizing prior auth. We've already started that process. There's the potential for improving and escalating the timing of getting billing done. A lot of that was timing issues for bringing family medicine on and then subsequently pediatrics. So there was a lag in getting those billed, and then there's a lag in collecting on those, which also, while it doesn't move the needle overall for the entire system, does contribute. And that's just timing of bringing a new clinic on board and then getting the contracts in place to bill for those. Getting all the NPIs and everything established to bill for those. So those are things that are one-off timing issues. So I believe that the cadence of billing will get back to our normal closing 3 days after month end, 3 business days after month end. And then we'll continue to work through the weekly RCM process to improve our collections. We know there's several points there that can be gleaned. Prior auth is only one spot of that. We've identified some other opportunities. We're executing on those currently, and we'll continue to find more.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, did you have a question, G?
That was me. It was Deb.
Oh,
If I may.
Yep.
So, I'm not sure if I misunderstood your question, Max, but what's the likelihood that as we get closer to closing the fiscal year, that there's gonna be a swing in that year end, almost 8.7 or whatever it is, $1 million loss?
We get the DRGs fixed, we will be reporting that. We just need confirmation we're gonna get paid on it. We find out about rural health demonstration funding and get confirmation on that. We will be booking that, and it could swing substantially.
To
All
the-
that can be done
to
in
the
subsequent
positive.
testing.
positive.
Yes.
There is a second set of income statements that shows the potential of that. Another piece is if we get the DRG payment, it will affect our allowance model because that would be a collectible amount that would
Yeah.
decrease what we're writing.
But I guess my question was more the likelihood.
yeah, yeah,
Before
exactly.
we have to actually close the books and submit the cost
I
report.
believe the DRG adjustment is the most likely of the two. If we
Okay.
get Congress to pass, that's outside our control at this point.
Okay.
So in that dollar amount, I threw out around 3 million. What's the dollar amount of that precisely, Joe or Angela?
On the DRG,
Yeah,
or the rural. The DRG,
DRG.
we estimate at 3 million.
and then the layer effect on the contractual allowance is how much of that?
I guess another 600, 700,000 if I was just, that could be. That's this way, I'll be honest.
Okay. And then to Deb's question, which is exactly the one I had, of the things that you laid out there, Angela, what of those are potentially bookable before, we close the books, especially on the billing piece?
So that would be the DRG. For them to hold that if they pay very timely. We have a few revenue loss insurance claims that we can't book until we have calculations. The forensic accountants are working on that this week. And that is from the OR fire as well as the sprinkler break at Wildfire Court.
But don't you also have, I thought, Angela, you were still backlogged. I thought you still had stuff that was not yet known in your unbilled category, which is along the lines of our conversation from last month. You haven't caught up on all those yet, have you?
Hold
Or
up on the unbilled.
Yeah.
Which would be, because that was just booked on the estimate at this point.
Yeah, Glacier Peak was booked on an estimate, so that does have some potential. It was estimated off of visit count, is that correct? Yes.
There's also
Okay.
post audit collections could impact the clinic contractual amount.
Okay, got it. I misunderstood that. I thought there was still some amounts to be booked, but you've got estimates in there on all those items now?
Yes, they are conservative estimates, but it is estimated in there.
And is there a chance that you're going to be able to convert that conservative estimate into more actuals before you close the books, Angela?
Absolutely. They're continuing to work through that process and build those out. So as we have more finite numbers, we will be updating that.
Okay. All right.
Through the chair, if I may, again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please.
So a lot of what you went through moving forward, particularly on the rev cycle, we're, we're only a month into this fiscal year. What is the timeline, do you think, to turn it or to get us to a point where we're confident that we're billing timely, collecting timely, and improving the pre-auth situation?
Pre-op, we've established a department and we're moving them over. It will be a process over the next 6 to 9 months, but the bulk of that is going to happen within the next couple months. So there's a few challenging departments that'll be on the back end. So I'm not going to say it's all going to be done in 6 months, but we will have the bulk of it done in the next 3 months.
The departments with the greatest opportunity.
Yes,
Yeah.
the greatest opportunity, which is going to be focused in on same day surgery. Yes. And then there are other things we're doing, insurance discovery, so that we'll be able to collect better, faster. We know what insurance a person has, what's their primary, what's their secondary, so that we can spend less time manually trying to find these things, and our team can focus more in on collecting instead of trying to hunt down what someone's insurance is. So we have a multitude of things that we're working through to improve that process. And there'll be more as we continue to have our weekly meetings and identify where a process may have broken or we can strengthen something. So there are several points. And when I say points, I mean, when you look at our contractual rate and what we're not collecting, there are several points that could reduce that will drive improvement on collections and subsequently on our revenue. And there's several points there to pull from. Prior auth alone was 3 million, 3.3 in 1 year. So there's opportunity there. It'll just take some work.
So one last comment. So
Yep.
in theory, this time next year, looking, or actually during budget time, the time to prep the budget, we should be able to see that this is all clean and we won't, because this first few months, 3 to 6 months of the fiscal year 27, we won't be able to reach our full potential, correct? And in theory, when we're prepping for next year's budget, these issues will have been resolved and we can feel comfortable in those net revenue projections.
We will see market improvement. I'm not going to promise everything will be clean in 6 months. It's going to be a process, but we will see market improvement and have more confidence in those numbers. Yes.
To be fair, we'll be complicating the issue as we add, as we change our clinics to rural health clinic status, because we'll have a new reimbursement methodology for those. As we add swing beds, that can complicate things. So then, we will be streamlining what we know and have today, but we will be adding complexity to the situation.
Thank you.
Max, I have one question.
Yeah.
Kind of in the revenue cycle, it's not a static process, is what I hear you saying, which is my understanding. And one of the things I hear about is AI and the impact of AI in a negative way. So insurance companies use AI to their advantage to deny claims. Is that something you're seeing? And is that, I don't think that's like a one and done, or you can just fix it. it's going to be an evolving, probably concerning situation where the rules are changing on a regular basis
It is
in terms of denial management and how you as a very small little operation are going up against large insurance companies with big AI.
And they can, spend $10 or $20 developing
Right.
their AI, and they can find ways around rules. And
Right.
they
Yeah.
write the rules. I mean.
Right, and so and I guess that's kind of in response to this idea that you can fix it and be done is not is not real.
That was what I'm trying to say.
Constantly
Right.
changing.
That it's really like,
That we will solve, we're not immediate.
yeah,
Immediate.
whatever problem you solve, it's kind of whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
I got a good example of that is that Premier and Aetna have started doing post-payment audits and takebacks.
Yeah.
So they'll run the claims payment through an AI model and they'll come do takebacks.
Right,
Like
so,
months past payment.
and so that's my bigger concern is that the revenue cycle challenges, if anything, are gonna get harder by this.
Significantly, probably is.
They are. There are some things that we can control and that we can fix, and that's an internal management, and we will pull every lever that we can. Is it going to be the battle of the AIs eventually on claims? Absolutely, which is why having right actionable data is gonna help us pivot quickly, right? And then we can figure out, okay, well, this is their new methodology not to pay. How do we address this? Yes, it will be a forever battle, but it's one that if we fix this up front, we can address.
Angela, do you have any more of your report you want to go over at this point? Please go ahead. I've got some more questions on some other sections of the report, but do you have some other things you want to share?
No, that was the focus of my report. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to talk about Wildflower Court a little bit more, and then I want to go talk about hospice and home care. If Angela or Anita, if you could please go down to page 9 in the packet. All right, so we are sitting, when you look at the year-to-date column, if you'd scroll down just a little bit further to start with. There you go. All right, so we are sitting on a $1.2 million before we allocate costs. Our direct loss is $1.2 million. We also had a budgeted positive bottom line. I think that was before allocations, though, of the $4.1 million. And I know part of this was the carry forward issue that we had for the non-retro rate adjustment that the state did back in August, September timeframe. And when I was looking at the 27 budget for this, I think we have a small bottom line in the budget for FY27 before allocated costs for Wildflower Court. And I'd like you to just kind of talk us through that $1.3 million in terms of, what does this mean for 27?
Sure. So the lowered rate from Office of Rate Review that we experienced for 3.5 months in July through mid-October of last year totals out to 1.2 million. So
Okay.
that's what drove the bulk of that. And then we also had the spring foot break in January, and we're not able to fill 8 rooms until April 9th or 15th, mid-April. And that was a significant revenue loss. We're hoping to recapture some of that through insurance. We simply don't have those calculations. So that drove that big negative on Wildflower Court. The good news is that the Office of Rate Review has approved our twin bed rate for FY27. And we only lost 9 days. 14 days in the lower rate. And they gave us what we asked for minus the inflationary rate. So we're almost at about $900 per bed per day for Medicaid. So,
What do we measure? What's the difference between them?
I think it's like $40. 850 to 897, something like that. It's about $40 per bed per day. So it is a little bit of a lift from prior year, and we did recover that earlier. So that was a successful petition for exceptional relief at Wildflower Court. So we feel pretty good. Yes, we don't think that Wildflower Court is going to have a very large margin, but we do believe that we are going to be close for FY 27.
Great answer. Thank you very much for that. And any committee members or board members, any questions on that part? All right, Nita, if you could go down to page 14, please. And if scroll down and to the bottom there. So we're sitting at about an 800,000 direct loss on hospice compared to a budgeted net loss of about $180,000. So we're about 620,000 below budget on home health. And if Anita, would you do the same thing on the next page, please? And we have a $620,000 loss there and a budgeted loss of $259,000, so $360,000 amount below budget there. And so when you put those two together, it's about $1 million. So we're about $1 million worse than budget for 26 and sitting on pretty substantial loss. And I guess the same exercise, Angela, that you just did for Wildflower Court, what is this going to look like for 27?
Absolutely. So if we look at home health and hospice, when we did the actuals, we decided to go ahead and allocate contractual allowance on these pro forma P&Ls. That was not part of the original budget. So that's going to be the bulk of the variance. So for home health, that's 300,000. For hospice, it's 252,000. So of the $1 million, that is over 550 of it. Now we know that we had some billing headwinds and we have brought that billing in-house and we are seeing more consistent billing. We've also fixed some processes and we're seeing better collections. It's still early in that process because we've only been doing that a couple months, but it is significantly improving. Subsequent to that is part of the rural health clinic process. We can roll home health under family practice, and then it becomes cost-based reimbursement. So the loss for home health goes away. So then we're only dealing with hospice. And if we take hospice as a standalone, it shows a loss of 620. 252 of that was the allocated contractual that wasn't budgeted for. So that's going to bring us down to about 350. So it's about $100,000 off. And with improved budgets and collections, you see that right size a bit more. So we will be closer. Do I think we'll be spot on? No, I think there's going to be a little challenge there, but we'll continue to work the process.
Hope springs eternal.
Yeah, it's not as bad as it looks on paper.
Yeah. So the and I appreciate that. Before I go on to my next question, Brent or Jeannie or board members, do you guys have any questions about that?
I have a question, I guess, not to derail the conversation, but it's kind of along the same vein. Are we able to know with the two newest private practice acquisitions, what their impact is on the bottom line, whether they're a net drain or if it's a net gain from you? Are they self-sustaining? I know we're using some like projected or estimated numbers for Bishop P's. Is that it? Are we able to break that out as well?
Yeah. If we put the family medicine in here, yes, it's in the next one.
on this.
So family medicine. Now, we have not started allocating contractuals on here, like we have done with home health and hospice. We will get to that point where we are allocating contractuals across all divisions, but right now it's a manual process. But before contractuals, they are at a net income of 162. So clearly with contractuals, they would be upside down. However, as we move them to a rural health clinic, then that would make up the delta, and then it would be close to or slightly under breakeven. Bartlett Glacier Peaks, because we're dealing with estimate, it's clearly going to show a loss right now, but we've only started getting them right.
Anything further on that, Brent?
Nope.
We had, when we went through our process to evaluate all of our hospital, kind of non-core services back 2 or 3 years ago, and related to hospice and home care, the Assembly made a commitment to fund $200,000 per year to help support our work to maintain and to make those programs viable. And this last fiscal year, in a late hour, the Assembly effectively took that $200,000 away. They transferred $247,000 away from the hospital to pay for non-hospital activity in this transfer to Gas and Human Services that they made. So instead of getting $200,000 to support this program, they took that away plus another $47,000. We didn't go back, and we didn't talk about this at our June Finance Committee meeting, and that was really kind of my fault. And I we just were so wrapped up with the issues that we had last month. And I'd like to get, I guess, Jeannie and Brent's thought about, a recommendation that the Finance Committee might make to the board about what we want to say to the Assembly about that, if anything. And it was a surprise, I think, to us. We all felt like there wasn't, at least from a kind of a moral pinning of the charter that said that, Bartlett revenues should be used for Bartlett. And they've essentially decided to ignore that. But I'd like y'all's thought about, and I want to hear from Hal and Deb too, since they're in the room, about whether we should say anything further to the Assembly about the fact that that they did that. And and it's with the idea that you say it so that it can set the stage for next year, So Jeannie, what are your thoughts about that?
What have we said so far? Have we communicated anything to them?
Yes. Yeah, so Deb and I wrote a letter, and I think the board has seen that, but we wrote a letter before they took action, when we just heard that they were going to do that. And I thought it was a fairly well-written and strongly worded letter. So, but we could circulate that again, certainly.
Yeah, and that letter went during the budget process, so it's quite likely that many Assembly members never read it. Is that, just thinking of the volume of things coming
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, I talked to one Assembly member who wasn't aware of our letter, did not know that we had written the letter. So you're right about that. At least one did not know that.
I spoke directly to a couple of Assembly members just to inform them, let them know that the letter was out there. Please take a look at it. But I also heard from an Assembly member that they didn't get it in a timely manner, and had not read it prior to the action that was taken.
So in that case, in terms of communication, I would recommend that we re-communicate the message now that it's already happened. This is what happened and this is how we feel about it. And maybe some information on the law, what the actual bottom line for hospice services was for the year.
Okay. Brent?
Yeah, I support bringing it up to get a second. I think that's a good idea.
How would we do that? I mean, you guys, and I guess I'm asking the question to Deb and to Jeannie. You guys are experienced with this kind of stuff. What would be, I mean, are we going to show up to an assembly meeting? Are we going to send them another letter? I mean, how would you suggest we do this?
I'm not sure. I mean, I guess off the top of my head, I just say we send another letter and then maybe go and provide comment, whatever they would recommend. The non-agenda comment referencing the letter at the assembly meeting, where you can just show up and provide comment on anything that could reference that letter.
Right. Deb, what do you think about all this and about how to best communicate it?
I agree that we need to have that conversation again, and we need to, well, we haven't, with many of the assembly members, we actually haven't had the conversation because they did read the letter, or they may have read it retroactive, or it's subsequent to the action taken. But I think timing is important when we communicate. I think that I know certainly from not just the assembly, from the administrative side of CBJ, they are just supremely distracted right now with the looming flood and a couple of other things that are on there. So I'm not sure that we'll get much audience, right, if we do it right away. But I want to definitely do it before the end of within the next month or two. Would be my recommendation.
Before the election or after? That I haven't thought about.
I think sooner than later. You know, I agree with you. Maybe we wait a month, but I think I'm ignoring the effect of the election. I think we shouldn't make a decision around whether it's election season or not, because, you know, that's just, I don't know, that's just, I think that's beyond this, really the scope of what we should consider as a board. But I do think that it should be timely. I think it's still early in the fiscal year. I think if there was going to be some movement for them to take action on it, the sooner the better on that. And so I would, you know, my sense about it would be to do it sooner. Hal, I'd like, do you have any thoughts that you want to share on this?
I do. As I'm sitting here thinking about this, I'm thinking, well, we should be addressing the assembly, of course. We work in their stead, but I'm thinking there's a place for a very carefully non-threatening sort of letter to the independent Juno, or to tell the public again that we put this hospice in place at a time when the hospital's finances were very fragile, and that we were going to give it a few years to see how it worked, and just tell them that maybe this is not working, and this needs more public support.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think I'd like to throw this out here too. To me, it seems like we need to kind of repeat this conversation with the full board, Deb, because obviously this is a full board thing, and I feel comfortable with us making a recommendation to the board that they consider, making a further statement to the assembly, but I think it needs to go through the board first, don't you, Deb?
I agree, totally.
Yeah, so how about if we include in the packet the letter that Deb and I wrote, and then pull or maybe not, you didn't pull it off the consent agenda last time, which actually I kind of like the way you did that, but we'll have a more expanded discussion again at this meeting about our finances, especially in light of what we're getting here. And then include in that this discussion around hospice and home care, which would include the letter that we wrote to the assembly, and then talk about it at the board meeting. Does that kind of sound like a plan, Deb? What do you think?
It does for me. I agree.
Okay, all right. Okay. Are there any other comments or questions or items on the packet? Angela, I want you to know, I spend a lot of time going through your packet and, the charts and the information that's in here. And I appreciate the information we're getting. I think that's good. And I think you could have this long discussion about a lot of stuff in your packet. And I just want you to know that the fact that I'm not bringing those up is as much that we have such a 500-pound gorilla that we're dealing with as anything else on these June results. So I do appreciate the time that you and Andrew and the staff put in pulling that together. So.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is the ever present and will continue to be present for at least the time being housing update. Anything new there?
Yes, we received, the survey was completed. And we received preliminary drawings. So we have those in hand at this point. We're waiting on the overall square footage and we can do an estimate on costs.
Okay.
At this point, it looks like the addition to Bartlett House would be somewhere around $3 million.
Okay.
Just rough estimate.
Are we at 6 or 8 units, Joe?
That would have been 8 units.
8 units. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you're continuing to get cost estimate data from Wayne Jensen?
Yeah, I'm waiting on an email from Wayne for more specifics. We had a meeting last Friday and he promised me an email this week.
Okay, great. All right. Well, that's cooking along then. Any questions from anybody on that? Okay. Committee comments and questions. Anybody have any comments or questions? Hearing none. It is 4:58 and we're adjourned.
350.
350.
So that's what we need is minutes.
Oh, sorry, 3:58 and we're adjourned. Yeah. I got to figure out what time zone I'm in. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate you. Anita, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.